Today we are going to create a Mosaic dataset, and then we will also create an ortho mapping workspace. So I've started a blank ArcPro map, and I'm just going to click map, and it's going to ask me to start a project. And I'm going to make a folder. So I'll click browse. And let's go to my documents. And I'm going to create a folder called Lab Week 6. Okay, so that's where all my map, project files, toolboxes will be saved. Select OK. And so you should have already downloaded the files off Canvas that we'll need for today. They are raster files, satellite images that we're going to create a Mosaic dataset with. So let's navigate to the folder that has the satellite images. And so I actually downloaded them, and I'll check my Files Explorer right now to show you. You can save them wherever you'd like, but I saved them in a folder called Lab 6. And these are all the raster files. So they're actually TIFF files. And you see the XML file with each TIFF file as well. So let's navigate to that folder. Lab 6. And then here are all the satellite images. I'm going to add them all to the map. If you don't have a new map, make sure to select Insert New Map. And it takes a while to load. So now my satellite images have loaded in the map, and they're in the contents pane on the left. And there's 6 different satellite images. And you could tell that they all look slightly different. So there's like different shading of the hills in this image as opposed to this image. So we want to be able to edit them as one item. So we're going to create a Mosaic dataset, and then we will add the raster images to that dataset. So we want to navigate to our project's geodatabase, which is right here. And then we'll select right-click, New, Mosaic Dataset. And this is the Create Mosaic Dataset geoprocessing tool. So our output location is going to be that same geodatabase. Let's call this Slow Mosaic for the dataset name. And we want to use the current map coordinate system. And the product definition, let's keep as none, because if something else came up in here, then we'd want to keep that as the default. But for now it's none, so we'll just keep it as that. And then let's select Run. Okay, so our Mosaic dataset has been successfully created and added to the map. And so there's nothing in here right now because the next step is to add the raster files. So we're going to right click on the Mosaic dataset and then add rasters. So we're going to keep most of the defaults here for the Add Rasters to Mosaic Dataset tool, but sometimes the raster type can depend on where you download your raster data from. But for instance, if you downloaded Landsat 8 imagery, you might want to select Landsat 8 and so on. But I'm going to just keep it as raster dataset. And then the processing template would autofill if it had a template, but right now we're just going to keep default. And I want to select the files. So I'm going to go to that Lab 6 folder that I created when I first downloaded the raster images from Canvas. And I want to do all types and select all these and OK. So those are all my raster files that I'd like to add to the Mosaic dataset, and then we're just going to select Run. and it's successfully added. So let's take a look. And you would get a warning or an error that said raster files didn't add. And in that case, I would just redo the tool and see if you click something different, see if there's a different data set that you should have added. And so this is great. We have our footprint, and now it's one mosaic showing all the different raster files. You don't see them yet because you need to zoom in, and it takes a while to load because they're big files. But so we have one satellite imagery, and then we have two, and so there should be 6 total. So now we've just created a mosaic data set. And actually, if you'd like the aerials to show up, you can select, I think it's Optimize, Build Overviews. So then you could see the aerials. And this tool can take a while, but then at least you'll be able to see the satellite images as you're browsing through the map. The Build Overviews tool has ran and completed, and now we can see the satellite imagery without having to zoom all the way in. So it's just optimized that imagery to load when you're at any scale. So with the Build Optimize tool, now we can see all 6 satellites that are merged into one mosaic. And then I also want to demonstrate what creating a mosaic dataset has actually done. So I'm going to turn the original satellite images back on and the mosaic dataset off. So you could see there's some differences in these satellite images. There's more hill shading over here. It doesn't look uniform. So these are things that you'd want to correct, and you can individually correct these. For instance, this road wasn't exactly lined up with Highway 1. Then we could georeference, which is what we did last week, or we could use geoprocessing tools to do it automatically. And so you could do it individually on each satellite image, or since we've already combined them and it's ran some auto corrections when we created a mosaic dataset, we can then run raster functions on the mosaic dataset. So let's click the mosaic dataset on, and then the image on, but let's click the footprint and boundaries off for now. So the boundary is just the boundary of the combined perimeter of the raster files. And then the footprint is the footprint of each individual image that made up the mosaic data set. So we could go up to imagery. It's a ribbon at the top, and then select raster functions. And you don't need to click the drop down. You could just click the actual icon. And here you have all sorts of different tools, which we will get into later in the semester. But one right off the bat that can help with just single satellite images, if you could tell that it needs to be georeferenced. I like to type in geometric. That should do it. And it corrects it so that it can increase the positional accuracy of a data set by accounting for elevation. So it takes in the elevation data, topographic data, and it auto corrects it. So rather than georeferencing, perhaps this could be a better tool and much quicker. We're not going to use this today. I just want to introduce these tools as we will get into them later in the class. And also, these could help with your own individual semester projects. And then just to close up this point that I was making, so if you turn on all the satellite images, turn off the mosaic data set, you could see the differences. And let's drag this one to the top of the drawing order. And see, creating a mosaic data set, look what it did to the imagery. It auto-corrected some of the hill shade, some of the positional accuracy. So it did that automatically, and then you can further run tools on it, depending on the objective. Okay, so we've created our mosaic data set, added the rasters, and now it's time to create the ortho mapping workspace. So to create an ortho mapping workspace, we are going to select imagery, the ribbon at the top, and then select new workspace. And we're going to fill out this kind of wizard workspace configuration page. So let's call this slow mosaic ortho. We'll call slow ortho workspace. The sensor data type is going to be satellite. And then we'll just keep topographic. So by default, this is the check mark. It's allow adjustment reset, but we actually want to uncheck that. And then we want to import and use existing image collection because we're going to add the Mosaic dataset as the image collection. So select the second checkbox and then select next. And for the image collection, we want to press the middle envelope and navigate to that slow Mosaic dataset that we created a couple minutes ago. So then let's go to the project folder. Sometimes if you forget where this project is saved, you can hover over it and find it that way. So it's in my documents. Okay, so let's go back and find it that way. It's in my documents, Questa, documents, lab activities, lab week 6, my project. And then here we go. There's the slow Mosaic data set. So again, you see how I just clicked out of this and I went to the catalog and I referenced where that Mosaic data set was because I forgot. That's totally okay. Select OK. And then select Finish. So you could tell it's really important to stay organized. Remember where you save the files. If you need to write it down, if you need to make it a default folder in your catalog, please do so. And so on the right, you could see that it's now showing the workspace. So if I collapse that, you could see the control points. These are for GCPs, which we'll get into later in the class. Here's your source data, and it shows your elevation. Okay, so our ortho mapping workspace has added, and then at this point we're able to block adjust, and we'll get into these refining parts later in the semester. But at this point, you've successfully completed the lab and created your first Mosaic ortho workspace. And just as a recap for today, you created a blank ArcPro project. You had a file geodatabase that you created a new Mosaic dataset to. And then once that was ran and created, you then added the rasters to that Mosaic dataset. And then you created an ortho mapping workspace by adding those Mosaic dataset to the ortho mapping workspace. So good job, and I will see you next week.